Good morning. It's February 1st, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, there's several topics I want to get into today. First is Republicans in the Senate are finally getting smart. The Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee this week endorsed Congressman Jim Banks for the Senate seat being given up by Senator Braun, who hails from Indiana. Senator Braun is going to run for governor. That means they're going to get involved in primary races in an effort to attract candidates that can win general elections. Last cycle, Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee under Rick Scott tried to stay out of primaries, and the result was way too many candidates that could win a primary that were unelectable in the general election. We saw it over and over. We saw it in Pennsylvania with Mehmet Oz. McCormick would have been a better candidate. We saw it in New Hampshire where Morris would have been the better candidate, but General Bolduc won the primary. We saw it in Arizona. We saw it in Georgia repeatedly. Well, this time around, they're getting smart because there are several seats up for election where Republicans have a good chance of winning, and they want to get the right candidates in there, candidates that can attract moderate voters, suburban women, and win general elections, because that's ultimately the goal, not to win primaries, which the far right thinks that's more important. Moving on. Now, I think we've all come to realize that the Biden administration is pushing the country toward a progressive agenda. Now, he said that he would outright attack the fossil fuel industry, and repeatedly the president and others in the administration have been pushing the American public to buy electric vehicles. They're tone deaf to the fact that most Americans cannot afford the price tag on some of these vehicles. Just this week, President Biden was shown driving one such vehicle that had a price tag of just over $86,000. Now, since the average American family doesn't make that much in a year, how does he expect them to be able to buy these cars? They all are more expensive than fossil fuel. Then we get into the other thing that they're trying to push. The president's trying to unilaterally move this ESG movement. And what I'm talking about is environment, social, and government, the ESG rule, where it says that you have to factor those in when you're investing in things. Well, every Republican senator and Democrat Joe Manchin are introducing legislation they hope will terminate the Biden administration's effort to move this. It politicizes the retirement savings for 152 million Americans. Now, Manchin told the media, and I quote, "At a time when our country is already facing economic uncertainty, record inflation, and increasing energy costs, it's irresponsible to Biden administration to jeopardize retirement savings for more than 150 million Americans for purely political purposes," end quote. This was followed up by a group of 25 states that last week filed a federal lawsuit against the Biden administration over this rule. And Attorney General Sean Reyes from Utah, where I now live, says it will put millions of Americans' safety net retirement plans at risk. And they're right. There's no reason. When you put your investment into retirement, your goal is to get a certain return so that when you retire, you will have sufficient money to live. But the Biden administration says, we're not interested in that. We want that money to go to companies that will comply with our woke agenda. And if you don't, you can't invest in them. Well, I got news for you. The American public isn't interested. Sure, we all care about the environment. We want it to be good. But when we talk about our retirement money, we want to make sure we have it. These woke politicians already have theirs guaranteed because they get a government pension, but most of us don't. And so we want to make sure that those investments are where they're going to get us a good return. Finally, last week I talked about the University of North Carolina's effort to create a new school dedicated to free inquiry and open academic discourse. And I said it's going to backfire down there. They're going to get everybody all riled up. Well, it has caused a fuss on campus and illustrates, in my opinion, why the new school is actually needed. It seems the faculty are outraged that the UNC Board of Trustees thought such a school was necessary and didn't even seek the faculty's permission. Can you imagine not seeking the faculty's permission to take an action? The chair of the faculty, Mimi Chapman, told the Tar Heel newspaper that she's, quote, flabbergasted at the trustees' decision and tweeted the USC alumni are, quote, leading and civically engaged left, right, and center with the hashtag solution search of a problem. Well, I got news for Professor Chapman. Maybe she should poll her colleagues and ask how many of them view themselves Republican and how many view themselves as Democrats. And then she might realize the magnitude of the problem because those views tend to influence how you teach. UNC trustees also apparently violated modern academic protocol by taking their governance roles and the students' educational mission seriously. One of the former chancellors was so upset about this. He wrote, the board, quote, the board doesn't have any ability to propose a class, to propose a degree, or for God's sake to propose a school. And this is from Holden Thorpe, who was the UNC chancellor from 2008 to 2013. Well, guess what? You had your time. It's gone. And you got to love him saying, for God's sake. Well, don't the trustees know that they're supposed to shut up, write big checks for new buildings, and let the faculty run the place? I guess they finally figured out they're not going to keep doing that. It doesn't work. We need to get a balance in our educational system, and I congratulate those UNC trustees, the oldest public institution in the country, for taking their job seriously and saying we're going to bring some balance back into that. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoy the podcast, either on Spotify or YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.